Power Hour with John Lee.
I want to start with some suspicious cults. Some cults, where the story just does not make sense. And I do focus on those kinds of things a lot because when a story doesn't make sense, it's because it's bullshit. It's not true. It's a lie. There are lies in there. And the lie is not important. It's what the lie is designed to hide. That's important. What are you lying about? If you tell me that you went to New York last night and you live in Spain near me, I don't believe you. I don't know where you actually went. But the fact that you're lying to me about it, that intrigues me. So that's why I focus on obvious lies. Now we'll go to JonesTown. The JonesTown massacre, it's often referred to. There's an expression in America, when somebody drinks the Kool-Aid, it means that they believe the propaganda. Something which is demonstrably false, but they believe it anyway. That's called drinking the Kool-Aid, and that comes from JonesTown. So the leader of that particular cult was Jim Jones, who was an intensely charismatic preacher. And the idea of his church, on the face of it, as with many of these things, was great. It was totally inclusive. This was in the 60s, right? So we're talking about Martin Luther King time, Malcolm X, Nation of Islam, the Black Panthers, the KKK, racial tension in America, the Watts riots. I don't know what year was that, and Watts riots, but, things were bad racially in the 60s at this time. And he's down there in California, and he's got this church. It was literally a church, and he was the preacher. And you can watch videos back in the day, and it's completely inclusive, black people, white people, Latinos, all together in the way it should be, and especially if it's church. I mean, God's, are we not all God's children? If you're in a church and you're religious, surely you believe that. And so all these black people and white people, they're there to do the same thing. And on the face of it, you say, that's brilliant. And that's, what made him popular. And he was tremendously charismatic, as I say, and a powerful personality. But he was also violent, and allegedly, he used to batter people. And I've seen him doing, like, healings, the typical stuff. This woman's leg was broken yesterday, and then he cuts off the plaster, and she's running round the church, There must have been some people in the church thinking, well, this is just a show. This is not real. I have to conclude that not everybody in the church really thought he just healed this woman's leg. But he did a lot of that kind of stuff. Anyway, he came under pressure because there were a lot of rumours about his behaviour, apparently. He appeared in the media a few times, and it wasn't particularly good. So he decided to move his church, figuratively, not the building. Looking for the right word for that. His parish, maybe. Down to Guyana, which is on the northern tip of South America. Guyana. And the long story short, there's about 1,000 people there living in this place called JonesTown. It's pure communism, in the utopian sense, where they're all working together and everyone gets food and everyone gets shelter and everyone's equal, basically before people get involved and start applying hierarchies and things like that, which did exist, of course, in JonesTown as well. It's inevitable, I think. Wherever people are, you will get a hierarchy. So he's got this plot of land and there's 1,000 people living on it. And then there's a congressman that goes down there from California to investigate the situation because of all these rumours and stories, and and he decides to intervene. I didn't know the man, so I can't tell you what his motives were, but he went down there anyway. And when he got there, he gave a speech about how it seems to be quite a nice place. His name was Congressman Ryan. and someone passed a note to a journalist, thinking the journalist was the congressman. Anyway, it said, "Help me escape. I need to get out of here." And then more people heard about this and started trying to get out and telling the congressman and these journalists, "Let us get out of here." One guy left his kid there because he thought it was better to leave because his kid was black. He thought America was so racist that he was better off in Guyana. So people really were in an extreme mental state at this point. And they tried to leave on a plane, and that's when they were killed. Congressman Ryan and the journalists, I think one of them actually survived, and one of them was killed. But they were shot trying to get on the plane, and it was actually filmed because there were cameramen there. There were journalists, and you can actually see them just get out of a truck and just open fire on the runway. And then they all committed suicide, and you're talking about 909 dead bodies, just strewn about around this like complex. So there's a big pavilion, and there's just bodies around it. And he was saying, he had loudspeakers all around the place. And he's saying it's better to die now than to go back to America or to continue living this way. Take the poison, drink the poison. Let's all go together and die. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. And they all drank it, including kids, and they all died. And you can see the bodies everywhere. Now, the problems that I've got with that, apart from the fact that it's an absolutely horrendous story and really shocking images if you've never seen them before, they're all dead bodies. It looks like litter on the floor. That's what's tragic about it. People looking like litter. But the things that bother me about this are the fact that the exact plot of land that he occupied was previously owned by the CIA. And that's a demonstrable fact. They used it for training purposes because they were always fucking about in South American countries. And they used to train there in this exact place. So the guy's trying to get away, Jim Jones, he's trying to get away from American authorities, and he buys a plot of land that was previously owned by the CIA. Strange coincidence. And he manages to build the thing. It's well constructed, and he's got speaker systems all around. Oh, he must have had electricity, generators. I mean, it's quite a setup that he's got going down there. And he's got his voice running on a loop on tapes, continuously talking. And he's got a constant supply of drugs because he's a junkie. And this is all at the same time. This is when the CIA were openly, well, not openly. It's open. It's open information now. But at the time, it was a secret. But they had an operation called MK Ultra. It was one of many mind control operations, and big parts of that were drugs and sleep deprivation and making a lot of noise. So you never got a moment's peace. You could hear Jim Jones's voice constantly on a loop, talking to you about, preaching at you constantly. And you always felt like you were being watched by Jim Jones. And this drove people literally insane. And these are the exact techniques used in MK Ultra: sleep deprivation, repetition, noise. These are all big parts of it, and drugs, especially hallucinogenic drugs. And he killed all these people, Jim Jones, apparently, with a mixture of drugs. One of them was Valium. I'll remember the other one in a minute. But he mixed these drugs together in massive quantities. I'm talking about in vats to kill nearly 1,000 people. Where the hell do you get industrial quantities of drugs like that, pharmaceutical drugs? And how do you get that stuff to Guyana, literally in the middle of nowhere? That just makes no sense to me. If this guy was on the crazy list as well, and he's living on a plot of land that was owned by the CIA, How the hell is he getting all these drugs in there? And killing 900 odd people. And the other thing is the body counts. They started off saying there were 300 people. Then it jumped because the Guyanese apparently can't count according to the American media. Then it became 400 and something. And then it jumped up to 900. And they said, well, how is this even possible? What's going on with these numbers? And he said, well, the bodies were piled up. Right, so you're saying that the 400 bodies that you talked about before were covering the 500 bodies that you've just discovered? That's not possible. You can't cover 500 bodies with 400 bodies. You do it the other way around, but you can't do that. Next, try again. So they said, well, actually, we didn't look round the back, and there was another 500 bodies round the back. You travelled all the way to Guyana, dead congressmen, a sea of dead bodies. You travelled all the way down there. You found that horrible site, and you didn't look round the back. Didn't notice the 500 dead bodies. I mean, come on. That stinks. The whole thing stinks to high heaven. I think it was a field operation. Personal opinion, CIA, the field, doing a field operation, they're trying this MK Ultra on a massive scale. Get Jim Jones down there, one way or the other, manipulating him, sending him, drugging him, I don't know, programming him, I don't know. But sending him down there to the piece of land that they own, putting 1,000 people on it, and subjecting them to these mind control techniques that maybe Jim Jones thought was his idea. And then, somebody's given the order. They're going to get deprogrammed. These people are going to start remembering stuff. Kill them all. Because the Guyanese coroner said that only a handful of people died from apparent suicide. Everyone else was murdered. I mean, there were people shot, stabbed, whatever you want. So it looks like the military went in there and wiped them all out. And that is bad. That is bad. And that's what I believe. I don't believe that he was able to get all those drugs brought into the jungle and cook up this batch of poison that was so well made that it successfully killed 909 people. And he'd never poisoned anybody before, but somehow knew exactly how to poison 909 people. Bullshit. Not buying it. Next.